You know those mobile game ads? The ones that seem to be absolutely everywhere, sometimes showing like impossible to fail gameplay.
Or suddenly there's a massive celebrity looking kind of confused by a really simple puzzle.
Exactly. If you've seen those, chances are you've bumped into the work of Dream Games.
And that's exactly where we're diving today.
Yeah.
Dream Games. They're the developers behind the ridiculously successful Royal Match and its newer sibling, Royal Kingdom.
Right. And they've just been all over the financial news recently, haven't they? With this huge strategic investment from CVC, the big global investment firm.
Yeah, it's a really interesting mix, isn't it? You've got this mobile gaming phenomenon, then this super pervasive and, let's be honest, sometimes controversial marketing, and then this high-stakes finance all colliding.
It really is. So our mission for this deep dive, using the source material you've gathered, the news releases, financial stuff, user comments, all that, is to really try and unpack it. You know, who are Dream Games? What's the secret sauce behind their games making so much money?
What does this CVC investment actually signal? And maybe the juiciest part, why does their advertising get such strong reactions? We're trying to pull back the curtain a bit on this, mobile gaming giant.
Okay, let's jump right in then. First things first, who is Dream Games?
So Dream Games, founded back in 2019 in Istanbul. The founders were already seasoned veterans in the mobile game world.
Okay, so not exactly newcomers to the scene.
No, definitely not. They've grown fast too, now have an office in London as well. And their stated goal, according to the sources, is basically to use tech and creativity to make really high-quality mobile games. Games people will stick with for years.
And looking at their market position, well, that ambition seems to be paying off, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. The sources show that by late 2024, they rocketed up the charts. 7th biggest mobile game developer globally by revenue.
7th? Wow.
Yeah, and the biggest video game company in Turkey. That's a heck of a climb in just 5 years or so.
It's incredibly fast. And the main engine driving that, the game most people know, that's Royal Match, right?
That's the one. It falls into that casual, free-to-play tile matching category. You know, a match 3 game.
So similar to giants like Candy Crush or maybe Bejeweled.
Exactly. That kind of core mechanic. Very familiar to loads of players.
And what's the story or the setup? What are you actually doing in the game, according to the sources?
The basic premise is you're helping this character, King Robert, to fix up his castle. You do that by beating match 3 levels.
Standard stuff, then match the colorful things, clear the board.
Pretty much. Clear groups of identical items, use special boosters that charge up. You've got a limited number of moves for each level.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
The sources mentioned other bits too, though, didn't they? Like specific items to clear, different types of boosters.
Yeah, definitely. There are lives to manage. You know, you lose one if you fail a level. There are timed events where you can win extra stuff. You can join teams, work together on goals.
Well, the social element.
Right. And you can even play it offline, which is a plus for some. But what really jumps out from the sources is just the sheer amount of content and the longevity.
How do you mean?
Well, as of late 2024, the sources said it had over 10,000 levels.
10,000.
Yeah. And they're apparently adding new ones all the time. So it's clearly built to keep people playing for a very, very long time, not just a quick download and delete.
10,000 levels. That really speaks to that play for years strategy you mentioned. And they didn't stop there, did they? They expanded the universe recently.
They did. November 2024 saw the launch of Royal Kingdom. It was billed as the, highly anticipated second game in this royal saga.
Okay, so same world, different story.
Basically.
Yeah.
This one introduces King Richard. He's King Robert's younger brother, apparently.
Right.
And his daughter, Princess Bella. Plus some companions, like a builder, a grand duke, a wizard. They're off on their own adventures.
Building out the lore. Is there a bad guy this time?
Uh-huh. Sources mention a vengeful Dark King and his sidekick, the Dark Witch. They throw challenges at you. Apparently, even specific creatures like a golem can show up as obstacles.
Adds a bit more narrative drive, maybe.
Seems like it. The sources describe the world design as, vibrant and playful, building on Royal Match's style, but with its own unique items and little details. Gnomes and turtles were mentioned.
Gnomes and turtles. Okay, so 2 big games in this royal universe. Let's shift gears now and talk about the business side, because the revenue numbers, well, this is where the story gets really wild.
It absolutely does. Royal Match has achieved, just staggering financial success. The source material says it surpassed $3 billion in lifetime revenue.
$3 billion from one free-to-play mobile game.
And almost all of that generated from the game itself, not external ads or anything.
Yeah.
It's become the #1 puzzle game globally by revenue, consistently in the top 10 biggest mobile games worldwide by monthly revenue.
And the user numbers?
Over 55 million monthly active users reported. And get this, the sources put its daily revenue now at over $5 million.
$5 million a day.
Yeah, just let that sink in.
It's hard to wrap your head around that kind of daily income from a single game. How's the new one, Royal Kingdom, doing in comparison in its early days?
It's off to a flying start, actually.
Yeah.
Sources show it pulled in over $50 million in net revenue just in its first 5 months after the full launch.
So that's, what, November 24 to April 25?
Exactly. And if you include the money it made during its soft launch phase before that, the total's over $66 million.
And it's growing.
Yeah, the reports mention steady revenue growth during that initial period, even hitting new daily revenue records along the way.
Wow. And how does that stack up against Royal Match when it first launched? I think the sources made a comparison there.
They did, and it's a key point. Royal Kingdom's revenue and its download numbers in those first 5 months actually beat Royal Match's performance in the same initial period.
So the sequel is actually launching even stronger than the original mega hit.
Looks like it. Faster early momentum.
Okay, well, that kind of financial performance, that kind of growth, it obviously gets noticed by the big players in finance. Which brings us neatly to the big news, that CVC investment.
Precisely. CVC, huge global alternative asset management firm, they're making what's called a strategic investment. They're coming in as the sole equity partner for Dream Games in this specific deal.
So what's the purpose of this deal, according to the sources? Why now?
Well, it seems to do a couple of things. First, it provides an exit liquidity for the original venture capital firms that backed Dream Games way back in the early days.
Ah, so they're early investors like Index Ventures, Balderton Capital, Makers Fund. They get their payday after 5+ years.
Exactly. A chance to cash out, presumably with a very nice return. The sources also mention that funds managed by Blackstone and other investors are providing debt financing as part of the overall package.
Okay, so it lets early backers exit. What's the other main goal?
The second, and maybe more important part looking forward, is setting up this strategic partnership with CVC. The idea is to pour fuel on the fire for Dream Games' next big growth phase.
More growth. They're already huge.
Apparently looking to get even bigger. The stated goals are about accelerating their global leadership, really cementing their position, and helping them realize their whole vision, specifically mentioning expanding that royal universe even further and creating totally new games too.
So it's a combination of rewarding the past success and funding future ambition. Makes sense.
Yeah, and the sources have quotes reflecting that. Soner Ademir, the co-founder and CEO of Dream Games, talks about being proud and excited for this next chapter with CVC.
And CC.
Nick Clary from CVC is quoted too, highlighting Dream Games' proven success, the strength of their IP, those recognizable characters, and the management team. All reasons why they're keen to jump in and help build out this royal universe.
It's a massive stamp of approval from the financial world, isn't it? The deal's still subject to regulatory nods, expected to close Q3 2025. And of course, the sources list all the bankers and lawyers involved.
Standard stuff for a deal this size.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a huge milestone for Dream Games and really underlines the massive value being created, or at least perceived, in this slice of the mobile game market.
Okay. Now, let's pivot. Let's talk about the part of this story that, well, probably everyone listening who owns a smartphone has some kind of opinion on. The marketing.
Yes, the ads.
Because while those business numbers are undeniably enormous, the reaction to their advertising is equally massive, but often not in a positive way.
Right. This is where the sources really open up about, shall we say, significant controversy and criticism around how Dream Games promotes its games, especially Royal Match and Royal Kingdom.
And the #1 complaint, the one that seems to come up over and over in the material we looked at.
It's the feeling from a lot of players that the ads are just misleading or even deceptive.
How so?
Well, the sources are full of examples. People seeing ads that show gameplay completely different from the core Match 3 experience. Like scenarios where you're rescuing characters from complicated traps or solving physics puzzles.
Yeah, I think I've seen those ones. Pull the pin, save the king.
Exactly. Those kinds of things. But then users download the game and find that those scenarios either aren't there at all, or there may be super rare bonus levels that you hardly ever see. It leads to this feeling of being, well, tricked. A bait and switch.
And the ad tactics themselves are pretty bold. The sources call out the heavy use of very expensive A-list celebrities. Who are we talking about here?
Oh, the list mentioned in the sources is long. Jimmy Fallon, LeBron James, Kevin Hart, Shakira, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Simon Cowell. Just a ton of huge, globally recognized names popping up constantly in these ads.
That must cost an absolute fortune, just the celebrity fees alone.
You'd have to assume so. And another tactic the sources highlight is what they call the incompetent player ads.
Ah, yes. The ones where the person playing in the ad seems to be making the most obvious mistakes on a really simple puzzle.
Precisely. And the thinking outlined in the sources is that this is actually a deliberate psychological ploy. It's designed to make you, the viewer, feel annoyed or superior.
Ugh, I could do better than that idiot.
Exactly that feeling. The hope is it annoys you just enough to make you download the game, just to prove you're smarter than the person fumbling in the ad.
That is kind of genius in a slightly infuriating way. How do actual users react to all this, based on the discussions in the sources?
Well, reactions are definitely mixed, but annoying and repetitive are words that come up a lot. There's tons of discussion, apparently, questioning why all these super rich celebrities are doing these ads.
Speculation is probably just easy money, right?
That's the common guess in the user comments cited. People pointing to the enormous revenue the game makes and figuring it's just a quick paycheck for the celebs.
And where is all that money coming from? The sources touch on the monetization model.
Yeah, and this is crucial. The material emphasizes that the vast, vast majority of that $3 billion plus revenue comes from in-game microtransactions, buying extra lives, boosters, coins, that sort of thing.
Not from selling the game itself, since it's free to play.
Right. And importantly, the sources indicate that a very large chunk of this revenue comes from a relatively small percentage of players, the so-called whales.
People who spend a lot of money regularly.
Exactly. Rather than small amounts from everyone. There's even some user speculation noted, though definitely not confirmed anywhere official, about whether some of the sheer volume of celebrity ads might actually be AI-generated fakes.
Interesting theory. So beyond just finding the ads annoying or misleading, some of the criticism in the sources goes quite a bit deeper into the ethics of the whole business model.
It really does. You see, concerns raised in the source discussions that the model relying so heavily on these microtransactions and maybe things like loot boxes style variable rewards, well, that it might be using psychological manipulation tactics.
To encourage spending.
Yes. And potentially even contributing to addictive patterns of behavior. Some users in the cited discussions explicitly compare the feeling of the in-game purchase systems to gambling.
Like slot machines.
Yeah, or slot machines that never pay out was one phrase mentioned. That's a pretty strong criticism.
It's very serious.
Yeah.
Does this cause people to just quit the game?
Sources describe some users doing just that uninstalling pretty quickly once they realize the main game isn't the frantic puzzle solving shown in many of the ads. But it's important to add balance here.
Okay.
The sources also mention that plenty of players who stick around actually do enjoy the core Match 3 game. They find it fun, well-made, maybe visually appealing.
And some manage to play without spending money.
Yeah, that comes up too. And players note positively that the game itself doesn't bombard you with third-party ads during gameplay, which many other free-to-play games do. So that's a point in its favor for some.
But this controversy, the gambling comparisons, it's actually escalated beyond just online discussion, hasn't it? According to the sources.
That's right. The sources report that Dream Games is currently facing a proposed class action lawsuit, specifically in Washington state in the U.S.
And the allegations.
The lawsuit reportedly claims that Royal Match, because of its monetization mechanics, actually constitutes illegal gambling under Washington state law.
Wow. That ties directly back to those user concerns about feeling like it's gambling.
It absolutely does. It takes that criticism into a formal legal arena.
Okay, so that's the heavy criticism. But as we discussed, the financial results are undeniable. So what do the sources say about why it's so successful, despite all this negativity around the ads?
Well, the sources, and this might be reflecting the company's perspective or just industry analysis, they really emphasize that the marketing strategy itself is a primary driver of the success.
Even the controversial parts.
Especially those parts, it seems. The effectiveness of the celebrity campaigns, those incompetent player ads we talked about.
Yeah.
And also sophisticated live ops temporary in-game events designed to boost engagement and spending. These are often cited as key factors in acquiring users and generating that massive revenue.
So the argument presented in the material is basically the marketing works, even if people complain about it. It brings in the players and the money.
That seems to be the bottom line presented. Some of the user discussions cited actually acknowledge this, even while just liking the ads themselves. They recognize that in the hyper-competitive mobile market, you need incredibly effective, maybe even aggressive marketing to hit these kinds of revenue numbers, almost regardless of the game's intrinsic quality.
And as you said, some people genuinely like the game once they're in.
Right. While many are put off by the ads or the monetization, sources confirm some players really do enjoy the core Match 3 gameplay. They might find the graphics better, the music catchier, or the level design more varied than competitors. Others, of course, might find it too easy or get stuck without paying. It's a mix.
It really is a paradox, isn't it? This colossal success seemingly built, at least partly on marketing that generates so much criticism.
The disconnect is fascinating. You have the user experience with the ads on one hand, often negative, and then these undeniable record-breaking financial results reported in the sources on the other.
Okay, let's try and pull all these threads together for you, the listener. What we have here is Dream Games, a company achieving truly extraordinary financial success in a remarkably short time.
Yeah, games like Royal Match, now Royal Kingdom, generating billions in revenue, mostly from in-game purchases made by, it seems, a dedicated subset of players.
And this success is so profound, so undeniable, that it's attracted this huge strategic investment from a major global player like CVC.
Yeah.
It validates the business model, in financial terms at least, and provides serious firepower for even more growth.
And yet, and this is the big yet, this incredible money-making machine is fueled, according to the sources we've looked at, by marketing practices that large numbers of users describe as misleading, deceptive, annoying.
Practices, along with the core monetization model, that have sparked serious ethical questions about psychological manipulation and have even led to a class action lawsuit alleging illegal gambling.
So what does looking at all this together really tell us? What's the big picture takeaway?
Well, I think it's a really sharp, almost extreme case study of how the top end of the free-to-play mobile game market works today.
Yeah, it shows the absolutely massive scale of revenue that's possible. It highlights the critical, maybe even disproportionate role that user acquisition through marketing plays in achieving that scale.
And it exposes this really complex, sometimes quite tense relationship between the game's design, how it makes money, and how players actually perceive and react to all of it, including the ads that brought them there in the first place.
It really forces you to think about how value gets created and captured in today's digital economy, and the sheer power and maybe the ethical boundaries of really sophisticated, targeted advertising that fundamentally shapes our expectations before we even click download.
Exactly. It's more than just a story about a game. It's a glimpse into the mechanics of a multi-billion-dollar business that's figured out how to acquire and engage users through very specific and sometimes very controversial methods.
So we've taken this deep dive, starting from Dream Games' boom and that big CVC deal. We looked at the actual games and their expanding universe, and we ended up right in the middle of this fierce debate about aggressive marketing, monetization, and the incredible amounts of money involved.
It definitely gives you a lot to think about next time one of those ads pops up on your screen.
It does, and maybe it leaves you with this final thought to chew on. In this high-stakes world of free-to-play mobile games, how much does the promise of the game, the feeling conveyed in those ads, actually matter compared to the underlying psychology of how the game keeps you engaged, progressing, and potentially spending money?
And where's the line? When does super effective, revenue-driving advertising cross over from just being persuasive marketing into?
Well, something else entirely.
Yeah.
It's definitely something to ponder next time you see those familiar celebrity faces or those clumsy animated hands, and you think about the sheer volume of money flowing through the world of mobile apps.